Chijioke, a billionaire who had built his empire with sharp instincts and unrelenting determination, found himself trapped in a conflict that no amount of wealth could resolve. Despite his seemingly perfect life, a gnawing doubt haunted him: the sincerity of his wife Amoka's love. Her beauty and charm had captured his heart, but his mind, shaped by years of navigating the treacherous waters of business and relationships, remained cautious. He had seen how easily money could distort truth, turning affection into obligation and loyalty into convenience. Each day, his suspicion grew, feeding on the shadows of his past experiences. Could Amoka's love withstand the weight of his success, or was it merely a reflection of the fortune that surrounded him? Chijioke wrestled with these questions, his heart yearning for assurance, even as his mind prepared for answers he might not want to face. The doubt was more than an irritant; it was a storm, threatening to unravel the life he had so carefully constructed. Chijioke's mind raced as the doubt consumed him, leaving no corner of his thoughts untouched. Desperate for clarity, he devised a plan so daring it felt almost absurd: a staged car accident, carefully designed to make it seem as though he had been paralyzed. In his eyes, it was the ultimate test, a way to strip away the layers of wealth and privilege that surrounded him and reveal the raw truth about Amoka's feelings. If she stayed by his side, offering unwavering support through his fabricated tragedy, he could finally believe in the authenticity of her love. But if she faltered, if her loyalty wavered, he would have the answer he feared most. The plan would require precision and secrecy, and Chijioke knew he couldn't do it alone. His trusted driver, Emmanuel, and personal doctor, Dr. Kolu, would be essential allies in this dangerous charade. The risk was monumental, but to Chijioke, the stakes were even higher. The cost of living in uncertainty outweighed any potential fallout, and with his mind set, he was ready to gamble everything for the truth. Chijioke knew he couldn't execute his plan alone. To pull off such a bold deception, he turned to the two people he trusted most: Emmanuel, his driver of over a decade, and Dr. Kolu, his personal physician. Emmanuel, lawyer and steadfast, had been by Chijioke's side through countless highs and lows, while Dr. Kolu, though a more recent addition to his life, had earned his trust through years of unwavering care. When Chijioke shared the details of his plan, both men reacted with visible unease. Emmanuel shifted uncomfortably, his brow furrowed as he questioned the wisdom of staging such a dangerous ruse. Dr. Kolu, known for his calm demeanor, couldn't hide his concern as he warned Chijioke about the ethical and psychological toll of pretending to be paralyzed. They both saw the potential for the plan to spiral out of control, but Chijioke's determination left little room for negotiation. Though reluctant, they agreed to play their parts, bound by loyalty and an understanding of the weight this decision carried for Chijioke. Yet, even as they nodded their assent, unease lingered in the air, a silent acknowledgement that the lines they were about to cross might never be uncrossed. The night was heavy with tension as Chijioke sat in the back seat of his sleek SUV, his heart pounding with anticipation. Emmanuel, his trusted driver, gripped the steering wheel tightly, his usual calm replaced with visible unease. The quiet road they had chosen was perfectly isolated, dimly lit, and rarely traveled at this hour. As they approached the predetermined bend, Chijioke braced himself. Without hesitation, Emmanuel yanked the wheel sharply to the right, sending the vehicle crashing into a shallow ditch. The impact was controlled yet convincing, the jolt enough to leave Chijioke momentarily breathless as he slumped against his seatbelt, playing his part. Within minutes, the sound of approaching sirens pierced the silence. Dr. Kolu arrived with an ambulance, his professional demeanor masking the anxiety brewing beneath the surface. The paramedics moved swiftly, lifting Chijioke onto a stretcher while Dr. Kolu directed them with practiced urgency. "Careful with his spine," he instructed, his voice steady, "we suspect a severe injury." Chijioke lay still, his breathing shallow, fully committing to the role of a man whose life had just been upended. As the ambulance sped away, Emmanuel lingered by the crash site, his face a mask of concern that perfectly complemented the ruse. Inside the ambulance, Dr. Kolo leaned in close, his voice low and urgent. "From this moment on, you're paralyzed," he whispered. Chijok blinked in silent acknowledgement, knowing that this was only the beginning. The stage was set, the roles assigned, and now, the truth he so desperately sought would have to reveal itself. Yet, even amidst the orchestrated chaos, a shadow of doubt crept into his mind. What if this deception uncovered more than he was prepared to face? Chijok left nothing to chance, meticulously crafting every detail of his plan to ensure its authenticity. From the precise angle of the crash to the timing of the ambulance's arrival, each element was carefully calculated to leave no room for suspicion. He spent hours rehearsing his role, perfecting the demeanor of a man grappling with sudden paralysis. His movements were deliberately restrained, his expressions carefully subdued, mimicking the shock and fragility expected from someone whose life had been irreversibly altered. Dr. Kolo, however, remained cautious. As he briefed Chijok on how to maintain the illusion, his voice carried a note of unease. "This isn't just about faking an injury," he warned. "You be living this lie day in and day out, and it will take a toll not just on your body, but on your mind." Chijok nodded, understanding the gravity of what he was undertaking, but his resolve was unshaken. The cost of the deception seemed insignificant compared to the clarity he sought. Every glance, every word, every interaction with Amoka would be under scrutiny, and he was determined to endure the strain for as long as it took to uncover the truth. Still, as the plan moved forward, the weight of the pretense began to settle in. Dr. Kolo's words lingered in the back of Chijok's mind, a quiet reminder of the thin line he was walking between determination and self-destruction. The lie was flawless, but the cost of keeping it alive was just beginning to reveal itself. As Chijok lay motionless in the hospital bed, the weight of his own deception pressed down on him like an unbearable burden. His mind was a battlefield of emotions: love for Amoka, guilt for what he was putting her through, and an unrelenting need to know the truth. Every time Amoka entered the room, her voice soft with concern, he felt a pang of regret. Her touch was gentle, her eyes filled with worry, but Chijok couldn't help but question, was it love, or was it pity? Was it genuine care, or merely a sense of obligation tied to the life of luxury she had grown accustomed to? The tension in the air was palpable. Emmanuel and Dr. Kolo carried their roles with practiced precision, but their unease was evident. Both men knew they were complicit in a dangerous game, one that could unravel lives in ways none of them could predict. Meanwhile, Chijok's mind raced, haunted by thoughts of what he might uncover. What if the truth shattered him more than the lie ever could? What if, in his pursuit of clarity, he lost the very thing he was trying to protect? The house felt heavier than ever, the walls closing in as the days passed. Each interaction with Amoka became a test, a puzzle he couldn't quite solve. The suspense grew with every word left unsaid, every glance that lingered too long. Chijok was playing a dangerous hand, and the stakes weren't just his heart, they were the lives of everyone entangled in his web of doubt and deceit. The question loomed over him, sharp and unyielding: even if he found the truth, would it be worth the cost? Chijok's plan, bold and calculated, came with a moral weight he hadn't fully anticipated. Each day that passed added another layer of complexity to his emotions, pulling him deeper into the tangled web he had spun. The ethical lines he had crossed haunted him in quiet moments. Was it right to deceive Amoka, the woman he claimed to love, or to drag Emmanuel and Dr. Kolo into a scheme that weighed heavily on their conscience? The manipulation of those closest to him, people who had trusted him implicitly, began to gnaw at his own sense of integrity. Amoka's genuine acts of care and concern made it all the more painful. Her sleepless nights at his bedside, her unwavering presence in moments of supposed vulnerability, these gestures chipped away at his resolve, leaving him questioning whether his need for certainty justified the emotional turmoil he was causing. Each lie he told, each act he performed to maintain the illusion, felt like a betrayal not just of Amoka, but of himself. The pretense became a burden that grew heavier with every passing day. Chijok found himself caught between his desperation for answers and the quiet realization of what this deception was costing him. It wasn't just a test of Amoka's love anymore, it was a test of his own capacity to endure the consequences of his actions. And as the days turned into weeks, a chilling question began to emerge: even if the truth was revealed, would there be anything left of the love he was trying to protect? The hospital hallways felt colder than usual as Amoka rushed through them. Her heart pounded in her chest, each step faster than the last. She had just gotten the call from Emmanuel, her mind struggling to grasp what he had said. An accident. Chijok, her husband, may never walk again. She couldn't breathe. She couldn't think. She burst into the hospital room, her eyes wide with fear. Chijok lay there, motionless, surrounded by tubes and machines, looking fragile in a way she'd never seen before. Emmanuel stood quietly by the door, his arm in a sling, his face shadowed by guilt. His eyes met hers, and she could see the pain in them. What happened? Amoka's voice cracked, her panic evident. Emmanuel's voice was low and steady. There was an accident. The doctors. They are not sure if he'll ever walk again. Amoka's legs buckled beneath her as she stumbled towards the bed. Her hand flew to her mouth in disbelief, tears already gathering in her eyes. She reached out for Chijok's hand, the only thing that felt real in that moment. Chijok, she whispered, her voice trembling as she leaned closer. Can you hear me? He blinked slowly, his eyes pained, and for a brief second, a flicker of recognition passed between them. I can't feel my legs, he whispered, his voice breaking. I can't move. Amoka's heart shattered as she clutched his hand tighter. No, don't say that, she cried, her voice filled with desperation. We'll get through this. I'll take care of you, I don't care what it takes. I'm here, I'm right here. Chijok felt a strange knot twist in his chest. He didn't expect her reaction to be so quick, so absolute. Could it be real? Was she truly this devoted? Or was this just the shock talking? But before he could ask, Dr. Kolu entered the room, gently placing a hand on Amoka's shoulder. He needs rest, the doctor said, his voice calm but firm. The next few hours are crucial. Amoka nodded, though her eyes never left Chijok. She looked at him with a mix of fear and determination. I'm not going anywhere, she said quietly. I'll stay with you. Later that night, as Amoka sat silently beside Chijok's bed, watching him sleep, Dr. Kolu and Emmanuel spoke in hushed tones outside the room. She's in shock, Emmanuel murmured, glancing at Amoka through the window. But what now? Dr. Kolu's gaze never wavered from the scene inside. Now, he said softly, we wait. We see what lies beneath the surface. The night stretched on, heavy with unanswered questions. Chijok had set his plan in motion, but now, as he lay there feeling helpless, he couldn't help but wonder, would Amoka's love prove to be as deep as she claimed? Or would the truth come out when the shock wore off? Only time would tell. The soft click of the door echoed through the hospital corridor as Dr. Kolu led Amoka into the hallway. He stood there for a moment, watching her with a gaze that seemed both compassionate and cautious. Amoka, Dr. Kolu began gently, his voice low and serious, Chijok's condition is going to require more than just medical care. This will be a long and difficult journey. His body, his life, everything will change. He will need constant support, physically, emotionally, and financially. Amoka's eyes widened at the weight of his words, but she didn't falter. She knew what this would mean. She had vowed to stand by him in every circumstance, and this was no different. I love him, she said firmly, her voice steady despite the uncertainty that lingered in her heart. I married him for better or worse. This is a test of that vow. I'll care for him. I'm prepared. Dr. Kolu studied her face for a moment, trying to read any sign of doubt, but there was none. He nodded slowly, though his concern remained. It's not going to be easy. You must understand the toll this will take on you. Are you truly ready for it? I am, Amoka replied, her gaze unwavering. I promised him, and I will keep that promise. As she returned to Chijioke's side, her heart seemed to ache with the weight of her words. She couldn't help but wonder if she was saying the right things, if she truly had the strength to see this through. But she wasn't going to back down. She had to believe that her love for him was enough. Meanwhile, Chijioke watched Amoka from the bed, his eyes heavy with doubt. He had been playing his part, feigning weakness, but as the days dragged on, he began to notice things. There were moments when her cheerful demeanor cracked when she struggled to lift him, or when he saw the tiredness in her eyes that couldn't be hidden. He had expected some difficulty, of course, but there were times when it seemed more than just the exhaustion of a devoted wife. It felt like something more, something that hinted at the strain of a life that was no longer the one she had imagined. Amoka, he whispered one evening as she tried to adjust his position in bed, her face tense with frustration. Are you okay? She forced a smile, her fingers trembling as she readjusted the pillow behind him. I'm fine, she said quickly, masking the moment of weakness. Just a little tired, that's all. But Chijioke saw the cracks in her facade. Her eyes betrayed her exhaustion. He couldn't help but wonder, was this real? Was her love truly unconditional, or was she simply trying to keep up the appearance of a perfect wife? As the days passed, his doubts grew, and so did the questions. Was she really there for him, or was this all just a performance? Chijioke began to question everything: the plan, his own actions, and most of all, whether Amoka's devotion was truly as strong as she claimed. And in the quiet of the night, with nothing but the steady beep of machines to accompany his thoughts, he wondered if the truth would ever be revealed, or if he was already too far down a path where it might no longer matter. Days blurred together in the sterile quiet of the hospital room. The routine had become a cycle: care, silence, brief moments of tenderness, followed by the relentless weight of reality. Amoka, once full of energy and optimism, was now worn down by the demands of her new life. She moved around the room, performing the necessary tasks with mechanical precision, but the strain was evident in the droop of her shoulders, the weariness in her eyes. One afternoon, as she tried to lift Chijioke into a sitting position, her frustration flared. The task was harder than she anticipated, and the weight of her husband's helplessness seemed to crush her. A sharp sigh escaped her lips as she pushed against him, her face scrunched in effort. I can't do this anymore, she muttered under her breath, more to herself than to him. This is too much. Chijioke watched her, his heart aching at the sight of her distress. His eyes followed every move she made, noting the moments when her smile wavered, when her gaze grew distant, when her patience faltered. The cracks in her facade were becoming more visible, and for the first time, he saw the real toll the situation was taking on her. Amoka, he whispered, his voice hoarse with a mix of longing and doubt. Are you okay? She froze for a moment, her back still turned to him. Then, slowly, she turned around, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I'm fine, she replied, her voice tight. Just a little tired. It's nothing. But Chijioke knew it wasn't just exhaustion. The bitterness in her tone, the way she clenched her fist as she adjusted his position, it was clear something deeper was going on. Her facade was cracking. As the days passed, he saw more of these small moments: the frustration in the way she spoke to Emmanuel when he brought in the wrong medication, the irritation that crept into her voice when he asked her for help with something small, the way she would stare blankly out the window when she thought no one was watching. Chijioke's heart twisted. He wanted to comfort her, to tell her it was okay, but he held back. This was the moment he'd been waiting for, the test of her love. He had to know if it was genuine, if she truly cared for him, or if she was simply going through the motions because she felt obligated. He wanted to reach out, to ease her pain, but the nagging voice in his head told him to wait. To observe. To let the truth reveal itself, no matter how painful it might be. And so, the wealthy African man begins to notice something unusual about his wife's behavior. Subtle actions, unexplained absences, and whispers that seem to echo louder in his mind spark a growing suspicion within him. Could it be that the bond they once shared is now shrouded in secrets? Or is it just his own insecurities playing tricks on him?